I'd like to introduce to you Cynthia Shackelford. Cynthia is part of our Penny Lane family, where she is a bilingual diversity, equity, and inclusion facilitator. Personal and professional lived experiences motivate her passion for diversity and inclusion and ongoing curiosity about relevant themes. She was trained by Dr. Joy DeGruy, author of Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, America's Legacy of Enduring Injury and Healing. She is also a certified, apologize if I get this wrong, Enneagram facilitator, having studied self-awareness techniques in the context of social justice under Dr. Deborah Threadgill Egerton. We love her, and we know you will too. Please welcome Cynthia Shackelford to the stage.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Cameron, for trusting me with this. My heart is full. See, my heart is full. This was supposed to be like a hat rack to do a gimmick with it, but I don't want to cover the hat, the heart. Because Penny Lane, we come from the heart. We're a heart-centered organization, so I'm just going to leave it just like that. So welcome. I want to know who I'm with. If you're DCFS, raise your hand. DCFS, DMH, probation, Penny Lane. Okay, as soon as we get our screen going. Mold in a hat rack, what does that mean? I love this lady. I don't know her, but I like their hat, so I'm using her. Okay. My intention is that you stay curious and leave curious. In a childlike way, consider some of the concepts that I'm going to talk about. I am coming from a very heart-centered place, a mother, not a professional, a mother, just like everybody else trying to navigate and figure this thing out regarding our identity. But I do have to tell you how this came about, Mold in a Hat Rack. Last year, some of you know, because you watched it, was a real difficult year for me regarding identity. Okay. That's my mom up there. She black. I know she looked like, but she's a black woman. And that's her and me years ago when she sported Afro wigs. She looks like Rachel Dolezal there, doesn't she? Does she kind of remind you? But, so, I did my DNA last year. Now, our story is real typical. I'm not going to go way into it because we talked about it last time. Those of you who were with us with EDGY, who was here with EDGY and went to our conference. My daughter Jasmine is here. Ooh, you were here? Good, okay. Got my whole family here. I'm so grateful. And the story is what happens to African Americans post-slavery in the South, the Deep South, where it's a sharecropping situation. And this was my mother's story, where her mother, Medea, not the Tyler Perry one, real deal Medea, dark chocolate, her husband, dark chocolate. And so, of course, Medea's working in the home, and my mother's born. You put two and two together, you know what happened. So my mom was sent away to keep down confusion. You gotta understand, this is Jim Crow era in the 30s in Louisiana. Another child was born who was like my mom's twin. But my grandmother was stronger and kept her in the family, no matter what. You know, so you can imagine the abandonment issues my mother had. And I, being the only girl with 6 brothers, absorbed a lot of her pain. Now she was, can I say that? She was a badass. Any kids in here? She was, no tears for her. She was something. So as I was going through that, and I did my DNA to be legitimate as a bilingual diversity, equity, and inclusion facilitator, I knew I had to really know what this is. A white cousin of mine reached out from Ancestry.com. Rocked my world. First of all, just seeing someone that looks like my mom. And she had some amazing records. That side of the family documents their existence going back to the 1200s. They come from British royalty, family crest and everything. But I also got some very disturbing information. She has records of the family slave ship and human cargo. I didn't know that piece. And I know history, but I had some cognitive dissonance going on, thinking that a sharecropping situation, no, that wasn't us. But that's so, and it really shocked me, my identity. Now, my hat, as a black woman, I strongly identify as a black woman, okay, as did my mom, okay? So, as I was unraveling, I'm thinking, okay, I've been in mental behavioral health for what, 35 years, treatment planning coordinator on a locked psychiatric unit. I've helped a lot of people go through difficult times and crises, personally and professionally, but I thought it's my time to check in. And I told my seriously, I told my family, if I start acting different, take me by the hand, no involuntary, nothing, I take care of my mental health, I don't care what people think. Take me by the hand, take me to the doctor, no pill, I'll bend over, take the edge off, doc. Take the edge off. That's where I was. But immediately my mom's spirit came to me. And she said to me, baby, I gotta say it like she says it, baby, you mowed down a hat rack. And it grounded me immediately. What she was saying is, I'm spirit having a human incarnation. My mom was a metaphysician in the discipline of science of the mind and religious science. So that's what I grew up under, very empowering. And that's always been my go-to. Now I gotta tell you too about black women in the South with idioms. They have a line for everything. Isn't that right? Her grandchildren are here. Now some things we can't say that grandma said, because then I can say this, well, she lacked in melanin. She made up for her colorful words. Am I right? I can't say some things here. For example, she'd say, if she caught you in a lie, what'd she say? I'm gonna say it like it. Shit. If that's true, grits ain't groceries. That's my mama, okay? So yeah, this grounded me. This really grounded me. Now, so I got this idea of hats. Hats are our personalities, and they're fluid, just like our sexuality. And so let me just tell you about a few of my hats. I'm black, cisgender female, heterosexual, mother, grandmother, sister, daughter, employee, homeowner, board member association, homeowners association. These are all fluid. They're ever changing. And when we over-tether to things that are changing, we suffer. And if I was able to be grounded with remembering that I'm spirit, you can call it energy, same difference to me, I'm a forensic interpreter. Same word, spirit, energy. I'm sure that is a ticket also for our teens that are struggling. Teens already are trying to figure this thing out called life. Who am I? What am I? Where am I? And then throw on top of that, figuring out their sexuality, their gender, and wanting to present as real, authentic. Yeah, and I thought if with the most hot potato in diversity conversations is that white, black extremes in the South. It works for that, absolutely. Grounding with knowing who you really are, teaching our teens who they really are has the same effect, okay? Okay, so what I want you to leave from here, I'll tell you now, is curiosity. I want you to stay curious. And I want you to leave thoughtful about some of the hats that you wear. Maybe, you know, as these fluid hats change, maybe some are worn too tightly, you know, and maybe wearing a hat too tightly interferes or serves as a barrier for you being your own authentic self to show up for a team. Jasmine, and this comes from my daughter Jasmine when we presented the last question that I asked her. I don't particularly care for the term ally in most cases how it's used because it's presumptuous and it's unidirectional usually. When I find marginalized people are the best teachers, especially those who go within themselves, shy away from the haters, and just don't buy into what's being said. They're brilliant. They are the teachers. But I asked Jazz, how could I have been a more supportive mom as she was coming out, on top of a mother who was struggling with her identity hat? And she cleaned it up for you guys who were here when she said that. She cleaned it up for you. Okay, but my daughters come at me, they tell me the truth. And I'm gonna say it like she would say it if we were sitting on my couch, if how I can support her. She'd say, Mama, get your shit together, keep it together, and that's the best ally you could be for me. And it's true, that's deep wisdom, and that's what the work is. She also, I worked in forensic mental health for a while, for 30 years or so. She went into mental behavioral health, also burnout. And one of the things she saw, jumped ship and went to like commercial real estate or something in DC. But one of the things she saw that I saw also, and I sometimes see, is chronically traumatized people will show up for therapy. They will show up and do what they need to do. However, they have become so skilled with the hypervigilance, they could read a room at any time like that, and they can read through their therapists, their doctors, and they see the woundedness, and they can smell a savior complex coming a mile away. And this is why I'm saying the best thing that we can do is to go within ourselves, examine our own hats. And that's how we're going to be able to support, just stand in wholeness for our teams. I'll give you an example. Let me ask before I do this. Raise your hand in this group if you know of a teen that self-injures directly because they're wanting to be authentically themselves with how they love, how they express. Raise your hand. Okay. How many have actually witnessed the self-injury? How many of you have witnessed a suicide directly related to this? I see you, and I'm gonna keep my hand up. And this is what moves me to do this. 20 years ago, I was watching the news when I had a TV. I don't have a TV anymore. I haven't had a TV in 20 years. I don't need the extra drama. But I was watching, it was a typical car chase where the driver was on the freeway, police hot pursuit. Driver pulls over and shoots himself in the head. And I'm watching this, oh my God, did I just see someone take their leave? A little later, my brother calls me, informs me that this was a little boy that we grew up, he was like a little brother to us. We went over to the home. Two of my older brothers went to identify the body. I spent time with the mom and the sister. We grew up like sisters. And she told me, independent of the results of what happened, he was wanting to leave. He's a black boy, wanting to be authentically himself as gay in the projects, and you just can't do that in South Central LA projects at that time. It broke me. It hurt my heart to think that. Some have to go to that extreme when they're just wanting to be themselves, okay? So that's what motivates me. And then I think about it as I'm talking about my biggest message, and I'm gonna give you a couple of books that I use as a black mother to show us, first of all, how do we get, as a culture, a Western society, so hyper-focused on materialism rather than who we are as our pure essence? That's been done by design. And then after that, I'll give you a couple of books that are my favorites that really kind of pull this all together, and hopefully I'll give you enough information about them to make you curious enough to go digging yourselves, okay? So example about this showing up and supporting our children or our teens that are wanting to be authentically themselves, and the client-professional relationship. I was working in forensics, and we had a young woman, beautiful, just a stunning young girl. Beautiful, thick blonde hair going all the way down past her bottom. Nobody wanted to work with her because she was a tough cookie. She really was a tough cookie. But they put her on my caseload, of course. And I couldn't get through to her. No how I couldn't get through. We were sitting in the office and it occurred to me. I just looked at her. I said, you know what? You see all these staff around here? You know they got skeletons in their closet, right? You know I got some skeletons in my closet, right? I had her attention. I had her. Now, it's not my business to tell you about my skeletons. But I don't know why the universe conspired such that I'm the mental health counselor and you're the client, because you know it could have been the other way around. And I watched this young woman blossom up, just open up and blossom. And she was adjudicated a sex offender. She got caught up in female circumcision here in California and compromised her daughter, and she was fighting to get her daughter back. She prevailed. I gave her some more material, similar to what I'm talking about today, understanding that you're pure energy. You're not your past. You're not these hats that you've been wearing. So that's my real success story. Okay. So how do we get here in the West? By thinking that we are these material manifestations, these hats, these personalities. It's been done by design. Raise your hand in this group if you know what Newtonian materialism is. Raise your hand. Put your hand down, daughter. Okay. Well, you know who Newton is, right? The guy with the apple, gravity, astronomer, philosopher, mathematician. Okay. Prior to his time, the church and the state weren't separated. Okay. In fact, our most brilliant scientists had to take divinity courses. Okay. It's when the church and the state came at odds. And the church held certain beliefs that technology was coming along and saying, I don't know. Okay. For example, the belief was that the sun revolved around the earth. With the telescope, we know, the earth has an axis that it goes, and it goes around the sun. Well, you get beheaded to make a statement like that, like in Galileo's time. He really had it hard when he was telling truth about science. Newton was smart. Of course, he was smart in a lot of different ways. What he did was he went undercover. He's also a practicing alchemist, as where we get the words chemistry. Kemet, as in Egypt. Okay, he was a practicing alchemist. That's why I believe he was so smart. So he came up with a happy medium. He said, okay, maybe we all have this energy or spirit part, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, pun intended. Because Einstein comes along and says, yes, it does matter. Everything matters. Everything is coagulated energy. But he led the belief that we're machines, and we don't have to deal with the essence of who we are. We're machines. And our entire healthcare system, our entire educational system is built on that paradigm. All of the related treatment approaches are built on that paradigm. That is quickly shifting. Now, up here, I should have my clicker. This is one of my favorite biologists who talks about this. Bruce Lipton, epigenetics. Who knows about epigenetics? The world's kind of talking about epigenetics now. Okay, I bought this book 20 years ago. Okay, and he's the guru as far as I'm concerned because he's a cell biologist and he's been looking at it for 50 years. And a sweetheart of a man. He was at a medical convention. We have a mutual MD friend, and so I got to go to his hotel room and pick his brain for 2 hours. I was in heaven. That's my thing. I just picked his brain. And he tells us, he tells the story about the Newton and the material paradigm. But he also tells us, science is changing again. Quantum physics come along. And so we're going very quickly back to what the ancients of many, if not all, spiritual disciplines have told us about who we are. We are energy, having a human experience, okay? And that has a very grounding effect for anybody, particularly our youths who are struggling with their identity and over-identifying with these different personality hats that they have. Oh, by the way, I didn't tell you one hat. I'm wearing a divorcee hat now. Have fun with it, but that's too much information, y'all. Too much information. And that is so. After a 30-year union with the father of my children, because I voted for love when my daughter was coming out in the whole Proposition 8. I didn't vote for her. She can handle her own. She's bad. She can handle her own. I voted for love. And that was indeed the beginning of the dissolution of my marriage. And so, Bruce comes along and he tells us that everything is about perception. The very cells in our bodies are responding to our thought life. And how we're looking at our teens is vitally important. You know, if we see them as whole, they are likely to see themselves as whole as well. Okay? But it's the inner work that we have to do ourselves to show up in this place of wholeness. Where am I on time? Is there a timer? Okay, I'm just gonna keep talking, y'all, then you just say sit down, since you just sat down. Okay. Let me hang out in here a little bit, one more. Okay, I'll tell you about the perception. Most of you, what were the therapists again in here, or maybe TBS? I saw my TBS people here. Okay, so y'all know the cognitive triangle, right? I use that when I'm training our parents for RHAS. Your thoughts are connected to your emotions or connected to your feeling, okay? The most important part of that for all of us and for our teens to learn, and for be we professional caregivers or personal caregivers, the thought life. He gives you the cell biology on how your very thought life turns on sick genes or suppresses them. That's empowering. Now, many of you may have had introduction to epigenetics, and when I attended other presentations, I left with a pessimistic taste, because there is a belief that we are our genes, and we're not. In fact, my two younger daughters, before they went off to college, I made them attend a Bruce Lipton lecture, and they left with their mouths open. Okay, so now when my MFT is taking my Georgetown student, I'm sorry, I have to do to Mama. She's now in an MFT master's program, so she's already been introduced to these. So all this information, it tells us that we have a lot to work with our parents, with our children, and work with ourselves in order that we're in a position to really stand as whole and with integrity, to allow our children to really express the way they need to express. Okay? So now we go into the next one. I just kept a really simple PowerPoint, no videos, I don't want anything, just keep it simple. Okay? So that's the biology of belief by Bruce Lipton. Okay, this guy I'm in love with, okay. I'm not really starstruck, you know, but biologists or some people just like, you know, really, really get me excited. And you all know, raise your hand, you know who Dr. Siegel is, right? The attachment guy, you know, yeah. This is his most brilliant work related to this, okay? And his book is called Intraconnected. Intraconnected is a term he coined, and it's not interconnected, because interconnected means there's a here and there's a there, okay? And what he's showing, it's a perfect combination that we can use as caregivers when we're really just standing with our children that are trying to figure some of these things out. Okay? He brings together ancient spiritual practices, and he leans heavily on the indigenous population here. You know, a lot of these truths that are coming full circle, they didn't go anywhere. You know, they're in different cultures, and sometimes I've had to even travel outside of the country to get exposure to treatment and healing practices that I find really relevant, pertinent to my culture, and they really work. They're really, really good. Okay, so So Dr. Siegel puts it all together in his book, and I just love the title. It's muy. And it helps me to think about my own spiritual practice, as I said, growing up in Science of the Mind, which was a strength-based way of looking at the teachings of the Christ. I can't say I'm a Christian because that would be misleading to some, but as I've told you, I consider myself a Christler. Because I like the teachings of the Christ, free of some of the dogma, and I say that respectfully. I have 19 Bibles. I study scripture when I was in forensic mental health, forensic interpretation school. I say that respectfully. So it's free of some of the dogma on the teachings. And it's beautiful, and it's absolutely beautiful. And so, growing up in religious science, science of the mind, you can go, 1 minute. Is that 1? 10, okay, got it. I don't wear glasses, I know I'm a grandma. I just won't put glasses on, I don't know why. Help me, girls. I see 10, okay, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect, thank you. So, science of the mind. This stuff and this more is what we're talking about, that we can share. We can step into ourselves, and then we can show up and share to our teens. Dr. Siegel, for example, he calls it the true self. Now, when I was growing up, this stuff, whatever it is, anything you put on it, it's wrong. It's pure, you call it pure energy, but it is that essence of who we are that connects everything and everybody. When we tap into that, and we're not wearing our hats so tightly, whatever that hat may be, might be a post that you have that you're holding on to too tightly, that might serve as a barrier for children who are wanting to see a wholeness, a representation of a wholeness, so they can catch the vibe. I called it super stuff. We called it super stuff. And when we can tap into that, as Siegel is talking about it, oh wow, that's really transformative for our teens and for ourselves. And this is why I said before, the term ally, particularly how it's often used, I kind of cringe a little bit because it's an indicator of it's unidirectional. If we can get our teens to tap into their power source that everybody has, and to loosen the grip on these personality hats, be you gay, black, white, what? What are some other things? What are some of the hats you wear? What are some of the hats you wear? Student? You got some student hats out there? Whatever the hat is, if you can loosen it up a little bit and tap into who you really are, then you can sport it. Put the hat back on and, pimp it to the side, I told you I'm from the project, sorry. You pimp it to the side, and, but it is the work. It is the work that has to be done. I believe if we're really going to touch these youths in their fullest expressions of who they are, okay? He talks about the solo self, and we're experiencing, not only here in the LGBTQ community, my daughter lets me call the community the alphabet crew. So I hope that doesn't offend anybody. She told me to say that, so the alphabet crew. We are seeing in diversity groups also this polarization, this camping, this grouping. It's a natural thing. Dr. Siegel talks about this. It's a natural human thing for us to find our groupings. You look like me, you don't look like me, and we do this othering. When the science says there really is no other. There is no other, But we have these necessary delusions, right, in this time-space dimension. Siegel again talks about this. It's only when we lock into that solo self that we get these polarizing divides, and we don't really get where we want to go in terms of celebrating our beautiful diversity. Okay, so yeah, we're connected, but we do have these separate parts of ourselves, and all of this again is a part of helping our teens to understand these concepts, but in the bigger work as we understand and embrace them ourselves. So the last work, really quickly, I'm just giving you a little bit of what I use as a Black mom to help me navigate my relationships and my family, and find when I'm wearing a hat too tightly and how to adjust that. But I just completed a very intense, grueling program, harder than anything I've ever done, with Dr. Deborah Ergoton. And if the call is our own beingness and to learn who we are in the context of social justice, this is the person, this is the expert. She teaches, anybody know what an Enneagram is? It's a new term to me too. You know what it is? I'm a 9. I'm a 9, through and through. Huh? You too? Okay. Okay, let me bring everybody else in. The Enneagram is an ancient spiritual tool. I think it came out of Egypt, maybe some Jewish Egyptian practitioners. It is the most important or powerful personality analysis that I've ever done. It's in its accuracy and its usefulness, just amazing. Well, she does that in the context of social services. Now, with social justice, all of our areas of diversity. This was an 8-month grueling homework, digging deep, knowing what our triggers are, knowing how we other people, how we other children, teens, because of how they express, or adults as well. The psyche is never more fragile than when you are allowed to see how you hurt other people because of your blind spots. And it will happen in this work if we don't go within ourselves and do the work in a controlled way, and she provides a safe container. And I'll just tell you, we'll end on this. We were in Big Sur a weekend ago or so, celebrating our graduation. I'll tell you, well, one of the things that I learned is how I hurt other people that was steeped in the trauma of this missing grandfather that I didn't know a name. And it really affected how I related. One of the things that like demonic pain came out of me during her homework when I learned that I othered white men. You couldn't tell me that. Especially in romantic relationships. That hurt me to my soul. I didn't know I had that in me, and I had to vomit it out. I had to go all the way back to my college days to know that that was so, because I was in a 30-year marriage, okay? But when you understand, I had this fear of this phantom limb of a white grandfather and what happened with my grandmother, of course it did. But I was able to heal from that with his work, so I can't speak about her work enough. So let me close this off and wrap this up. What I'm saying to parents, mothers, fathers, teachers, correction officers, any kind of caregiver role, truly, in order to help our teens show up as they really are, it is an inward journey. And I know it's not hard. I know it is hard, but it is the most effective way to show up. And then we see the wholeness. The way we look at them totally shifts. And that's along with all the wonderful interventions that they'll need. But imagine feeling your own integrity and dealing with the child. They feel it too. And lastly, I'm going to say, this is the first time I'm seeing my baby. You're beautiful, sugar. She's in her first year. I knew you as Isaiah, but I didn't know you, obviously. And I'm so glad to see you, Zaya. You are the sweetest, humble, giving your daddy, my big brother, the patience and the understanding that he's grieving. He loves you all, and you're giving him the space to adjust to the losses so that he can see what we see in you. Diamond. This is big. I gotta address my babies if you don't mind. And this applies to everybody else. You're rocking it, sugar. You are rocking it. the queer community stuff you're doing in the YouTube and the billboards and full, you are rocking it. Jasmine has always been rocking it. Sequoia, thank you for being the rock to your siblings. You're doing the real work, and it's not easy to be authentic and to stand. But I'm going to say to you babies, read these books too. Go deep into your spirit self, your spirit soul, then step into your head, be it queer, straight, pimp that baby to the side, rock it, and walk through this life and enjoy. Peace and blessings.